Great. Thank you so much for this informative presentation. I really enjoyed it. My name is Sharifa Yateem, and I'm a co-founder of ABA Journal Club. And I'm also the founder and the clinical director of Sharifa Yateem Center for Rehabilitation. We are currently in Khalifa City, and we do have a team of amazing RBTs and BCBA and a BCABA overseeing all programs, as well as myself. And we have an amazing team that supports the parents, caregivers, and their individual programs. So I just want to share the screen. Uh, Let me just give me 1 second. All right. I hope you can see my slide there. All right. All right. So, as you know, ABA Journal Club
Sorry,
is...
Sharifa.
Yes.
Sharifa. We can see it, but can you just put it into presenter view?
Presenter view. Yeah, like in a slideshow, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I have that. Do you see it?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Great. So I just want to give you a quick introduction of what is the ABA Journal Club and the summary of the article that have been chosen for you guys today. And then we'll discuss, as usual, the 7 dimensions of ABA if it does, if the article do have the 7 dimensions of ABA. So that's what the whole point of the ABA Journal Club is, to read, to discuss, and enrich our information. And hopefully we can, continue to push all participants and practitioners to read more articles, and not just read it, but also critique it. So this is what we do at the ABA Journal Club. Of course, I want to thank the team that have helped to found the ABA Journal Club. It's a volunteer-based nonprofit initiative. It's under the ABA chapter. It's all about disseminating knowledge of ABA. It is founded by myself and Manal Aryani and Nusayba El Amri. They're also Emiratis at our BCBAs. So for the membership, it's simple. You just email, or there's a link that will be shared in the chat that you're free to put on your names for earning any free EUs, or if you'd like to reach out to us for participating as a volunteer to moderate an article of your interest. Now, I always want to thank Immer's College for Advanced Education and Dr. Michelle for collaborating with the Journal Club to provide CEUs by the BACB board. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle. You can also follow us on Instagram, ABA Journal _club. And of course, the previous sessions of the ABA Journal Club, if you didn't have a chance to hear us out, you can always look at the YouTube links that is under the Immer's College of Advanced Education. Let's start with the article. Without further ado, I just want to double check, Dr. Michelle, what time am I going to stop? Just to double check with you.
So, Sharifa, you have until 7 p.m. So we have 6 till 7 p.m.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your clarification. Thanks. Great. So I have 1 hour to go through an article and critique it. So thank you so much. Let me go back to the view of the article. Yep. So the article that I chose, it's by Gibson, Gray, and Hastings, and they were investigating the supervisor's support as a predictor of burnout and therapeutic self-efficacy in therapists working in ABA schools. And it's published under the Journal of Autism Developmental Disorders. You can have the article free of charge, and it's in a link also sent to everyone I think, so they can have access to. I hope you guys had time to read through the articles. If you didn't, that's absolutely fine as well. Sorry. All right, so let me just dive into the introduction sections. As you can see, in the introduction section, they started off talking about the use of ABA as an intensive behavioral intervention and how amazing we've seen the research that's developing regarding supporting individuals on the spectrum and how much they have done research to standardize it. Now, however, there's been very little um, research or factors on impacting the performance of the therapists applying AB interventions. As we know, the outcome of programs really depends on several factors. It depends on, of course, the program itself, the intensity of the intervention, the supervision intensity, the intervention quality, or the fidelity of the program being implemented, the therapist performance and training procedures. So, in a nutshell, that is what they were discussing, that there are several ingredients for the program success. Of course, as an owner of a center or a BCBA or an RBT, we really do make sure that our programs are successful. And that's what makes our program in the field of ABA strong, because we are data driven. So, however, there are different factors that we need to keep in mind. Now, previous research has done a bit of research on understanding what are the factors that impacted the outcome of ABA programs, such as Simus et al. 2006. They looked into the quality of training, therapist-owned patients, which was interesting to me, the child variables such as the ability, motivation, compliance, likability, challenging behaviors, and the problems identifying reinforcers in their programs. Another study have done, which by Elfert and Miranda, 2006, also looked into excessive job demands, role conflicts as a way of affecting the well-being of the therapists, as well as the severity of the symptoms of autism that they're working with. Now, what did this study do that was different than the other studies? There hasn't been much studies looking into the other factors potentially affecting the performance of therapists delivering ABA. But what they were looking at, two things. One, their perceived therapeutic efficacy. Two, their work-related well-being, right? So again, this article is not the typical ABA article. They were looking into more the qualitative part of the ABA therapist well-being. So that was something that interested me to explore and break down. Now let us look deeply into let us like cut the cake, as we can say. Let us look at the participants, the people that were in this study, the measures that they used, the procedures, and the results, and of course, a discussion at the end. So there are 81 therapists in the study that took part of the study, and 11 separate schools that use ABA for autism across counties in Ireland. And all of these schools provided one-to-one. The therapists were the age between 20 to 44 years old, and they provided 36 hours of sessions per week. There are 5 measures that were used to look into the different aspects that affected the individual's performances, the ABA therapist performance. The most popular one is the Burnout Inventory, MBI, Maslach Burnout Inventory, to assess severity of burnouts. I know a lot of people in the field of ABA or in centers in ABA centers, even schools or organizations in general, they don't really look into the different components of burnout. And I think this is very important to make sure that, to decrease the absences and so forth. So I think it's really important to really look into those measures in which they broke down those measures, the 22 items in this measurement, into 3 dimensions of a burnout: the emotional exhaustion, the depersonalization, and the reduced personal accomplishments. Now, emotional exhaustion, it's self-explanatory. The depersonalization, I had to look into it and read more about it. It was not explained in the article. The article's quite short, so I had to go in and read more about the dimensions of the burnouts. The depersonalization, which I found out, is about, empathizing towards the client or towards the therapist, as well as reducing personal accomplishments. So these are the three dimensions of burnout that is tested in Maslach burnout inventory. The second measure they used is the perceived therapeutic self-efficacy scale, PTSE. This measure focused on perceived efficacy when child is difficult to engage on, how confident they are that they can teach this child in this specific situation, right? So are the RBTs confident enough to apply the program? So it really taps on the fidelity of the intervention as well. The third kind of measure is the work demand subscale of the school organizational health questionnaire. And in this measure, this was used to assess perceived work demands. The fourth measurement that was used, it is the 8-item perceived supervisor support scale by Insberger et al. 2002, and it was used to measure the supervisor support for ABA therapists, right? And finally, the Autism Treatment Philosophy Questionnaire. It was used to assess strength of commitment to the philosophy of ABA. All right. So far is everything clear? So we looked into the participants, who were the participants, and what kind of measurement system that they've used. So they're all questionnaires. It's qualitative. It's not experimental. And I just wanted to use this to not only bring awareness to our listeners about the importance of understanding the well-being of your staff, as it does directly impact the outcome of the interventions that you apply to the kiddos that we work with. Now, I know these results might be a bit new to people that are not used to the SPSS. So I just snapshot the different results of the MBI, and I just wanted to show you that there were different variables as we discussed: the emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, personal accomplishments, PTSE, difficult to engage, excessive work demands, perceived supervisor support, and commitments to ABA. Now, we found that the mean tells us, just to really quickly um, explain, what does the M stands for and what does SD stand for. So the M tells us what the average value is, as you can see here in my notes. And the SD tells us what the average scatter of values is around the mean, right? So we have low standard deviation. That means the data is nearer to the mean, while the high standard deviation, that means it's away from the actual mean, right? I'll explain to you further the summary of the results. So as you can see here in the emotional exhaustion, the mean was 21 and the SD was 9. So it did have an impact on the emotional exhaustions. The depersonalizations, as you can see here, that there wasn't any impact, and so forth. So we will just break that down further in the next slide. So the mean standard deviation and coefficient alphas and correlation between study measures were put together here in this table. Now, what does that mean? It showed in their study, that the high levels of burnout were on emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and lack of personal accomplishments. Next, they also looked at the perceived therapeutic self-efficacy. So as we said, how confident is the therapist applying the programs? So once the length of time working in ABA school increased, and there was supervisor support were positive predictors of
Sharifa.
perceived. Hello?
Sorry, Sharifa. Hi, sorry, Sharifa. This is Michelle. Could you please go back to full presenter view?
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you.
So when we are looking at this, we are looking at the length of time. So as we increase the time working in an ABA school, the more positive it is when you are applying the programs, right? So understanding the importance of, you know, making sure that you are working in a center or in a school that do apply ABA interventions does have an impact on your your understanding, or let's say the self-efficacy in applying the interventions. So the predictors are, as we said, the months working in ABA school, the commitment to the ABA philosophy, and the number of supervisory support. So all of those three had a prediction of the therapeutic efficacy. So they broke down the results into the emotional exhaustion burnout and the personal accomplishment and the depersonalization burnout. And they broke it down into three steps. They looked into, does the perceived work demands also have an impact on the emotional exhaustion burnout? Step two, they looked into perceived work demands with the supervisor's support and how that impacts the emotional exhaustion. And step three, they've added the third component, which is the demands with the support together. And that is under the three variables of burnout, which is the emotional exhaustion, the personal accomplishments, and the depersonalization burnout factors. Now, this is a really nice visual here in which they interpreted the research and looked into if there was high levels of work demands with low levels, the low support is a square, as you can see here. With a low level of support, you will have low levels of personal accomplishments. So they predicted with the results that if someone has high work demands with low support, they will have low personal accomplishments. And same thing here. If they had high work demands, but they had high support from their supervisors, then their personal accomplishments is also high. Right? If we're looking at low work demands, same thing here. We're looking if the therapist doesn't have work demands, they have high personal accomplishments in the three, whether or not they had support. So all of the three had similar personal accomplishment percentages. But as we can see here, because of our jobs as therapists, we do have a high work demand. It's the nature of working in a center that works using ABA frameworks. So it's important that we also look at the amount of support the therapists do have with their work demands. So let's look at the summary. It seems like I'm going to finish earlier than I thought, but what I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes, once we finish the discussion and the part of the 15 to 20 minutes, we want to discuss about um, the demands or the demands of the therapists working in this field and how supervisors do help in decreasing or increasing the well-being of the AB therapists. So the article summary at the end, when we're discussing the sections, they found out that the results reflected on the notion that when the supervisors understood their therapists and they had understood the burnout effects on the therapists, the therapeutic self-efficacy would increase. They will be able to implement the programs correctly. Their self-accomplishments will increase. And so this is what we want. This is our goal when we're working with therapists. The second thing that they also concluded is the high levels of perceived supervisor support. It equaled to reduced emotional exhaustion, which was one of the factors of burnout, as we mentioned, reduced depersonalization, and increased personal accomplishments, which means will be an increased perceived therapeutic self-efficacy, and therefore the outcomes of the program, of course, would be better. So it's really like a, dominoes effect, let's say, when we're talking about the importance of supervisor support. The supervisor's support acted to protect the therapist from reduced personal accomplishment when faced with high levels of perceived work demands. So this is our takeaway point here. The results were similar to the theoretical prediction that high work demands and low support led to the highest levels of work-related stress. Sure. All right. Um, and lastly, we discussed about the importance of the limitations to discuss in an article. There were some limitations that I thought that would be great to look at. Um, the response rate of those therapists was moderate, and they did mention that some people actually experienced high burnout in their jobs and refused to answer the questionnaire, which I found that interesting. Um, the population of the ABA therapists was not representative because of the response rate working in Ireland. And there were no data on the therapist performance within the work setting. So it's just the perception of the therapist rather than really looking into the how that impacted their performance. And there was lack of longitudinal study. So these are one of the things that I think it would be great to have future research in it. So what are some practical implications that we can take away from the study? Well, one of the things that I thought that would really be beneficial for all of us is that regular and high quality supervision is likely to have a positive effect on our ABA therapists and thus, of course, the success of our ABA interventions. So what does that high quality supervision mean? They didn't mention that. And I thought that was something that I wanted to also look into. But I think one of those, let's say, measures was the one that measured the supervisors' work that they do with their teachers. Supervisors who have an encouraging style, such as using reinforcement principles to support their supervision and demonstrate empathy of direct interventions, were the ones that really impacted the success of the implementation of ABA interventions. Lastly, supervisors should have some experience in direct intervention work, because as they said that the supervisors need to demonstrate empathy. And it makes sense. If the supervisor never had an experience in direct intervention, they wouldn't really know what the ABA therapist is going through, right? And also always listen carefully to the therapist's perspective. This is something that I also thought that it's important for supervisors to be trained on, which is, empathy listening, or as we say, listening and really understanding what the therapist's perspective is. So you really want to understand what is the therapist going through, what is the things that they're having difficulties in, and work with them to solve the problems. So these are the stuff that as supervisors, when we are getting into the field and taking the position of a supervisor, we really need to work on some of those qualities as a great supervisor. And the best thing about the BACB is that they have some guidelines. They do have the curriculum that supervisors can go through it and build on their supervision skills. Additionally, I think it's really important in my perspective to look at having future supervisors observing, supervisors that have been doing this for a period of time. I think it's also very important to apply some of the, the how to give feedback and how to accept feedback as part of your supervisory role. I think does really impact the understanding of the positive effect on ABA therapists. All right, so this is an opening for all the group. I would like for everyone to come up and discuss what they thought about the article, and let's look at the dimensions of ABA. Now, we know what are the 7 dimensions of ABA. As we can see, it's a roadmap to help you to remember about the 7 dimensions of ABA. Everyone that's working in the field of ABA should understand the 7 dimensions of ABA and implement it in their, not only in reading their articles, but also in implementing programs, in doing research, just like how we just talked about how to conduct research. Really, you really need to look into these different aspects or dimensions of ABA. Now, to help you to remember it, I like this little, illustration about get a cab. So we want to look at first stop would be generality. What does generality mean? Your results are durable and long lasting. Do you think that this article had any generality dimension in it? The behavior change may be said to have generality if it proves durable over time, if it appears in a wide variety of possible environments, if it spreads to a wide variety of related behaviors. Do you score 1? Because we always score out of 7. What do you think? Do you think that this article reflected some generality in their research? I can't see everyone, so I'm just gonna minimize this and read those messages. You can type in your message if you think that this article covered the first factor of ABA, which is generality. Well, I think in my perspective, since they've mentioned that they didn't have any longitudinal study in their limitation, they score 0 in this, I think. So does this article adhere to generality dimensions? Correct. Does it adhere to it? Video says yes. I'm just wondering if how do you feel that the article showed generality? Can someone explain? Maybe Amira or Video. Are we allowed to open their mics or not?
Yes, of course, Sharifa.
Okay, great. So please do share your thoughts. This is supposed to be a more, discussion aspect of the presentation. So why do you think that they did have the generality dimension in the article? I'd be very interested because when I read this article, I felt like they didn't really help me generalize the results because as they said that they didn't have a representative population. What do you guys think? Amira or Vijo? Putting you on the spot there. But yeah, I felt like it wasn't really effective. So let me know your thoughts. I would score 0 for that. So I'm just gonna put a 0 on that. But if you feel that there is, so I'll put a 1. So just put that in brackets and wait and see. The next was the effective. So what does that mean? Effective means interventions are effective when they improve a behavior in a particular matter. If the application of a behavior technique does not produce large enough effects of practical value, then the application has failed. So for effectiveness, as you can see here in our little get a cab, the behavior techniques result in socially significant change. Did it have any social significant change? Again, I need to minimize it to look at your chats. Do you feel that this article had resulted in a socially significant change? What do you think? I mean, they did talk about the importance of understanding the burnout impact on the outcomes, or let's say the fidelity or self-efficacy and personal accomplishments. But they didn't really change any behavior. It doesn't really change any behaviors, but they definitely look into um, the different burnout aspects. Thank you guys for sharing. There is no specific intervention, correct? I'd score zero simply because they were looking at the factors affecting burnout and didn't demonstrate reducing it. Yes, correct. So I would also think so too. So another zero. All right. So the next point we want to look at is the technological, or let's say the technological procedures they described was clear and concisely so that others may implement the procedures accurately. All steps are written in detail to get the desired results. Will you be able to replicate this and find the results in your organization, let's say? Would you score one or zero? I think here for this procedures were described. They gave us the names, but they didn't really look into um, if there was any step by step. They only talked about the different measures that we can distribute towards the therapists that work in an ABA intervention center. Hmm. I don't know. Maybe I can give a half for that. So let's put a 0.5 for
Can I say
technological.
something?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, first of all, I actually wanted to put in the chat, but apparently my chat is not working. I mean, I cannot see the chat button, so I cannot put in the chat. So I'm just gonna unmute myself and say something about
Sure, go ahead.
the. Well, I mean, when I first think of procedure, as in like is there how to say maybe a detailed procedure, how they can deal with the burnout, okay? But as well, the procedure that I can only see is that how they collect the
Yeah.
data, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not
Correct.
really is really, I mean, this is like it's really just telling us how to say how this research has been conducted. It's not more on um teaching us the procedure to deal with the burnout.
Correct. Correct. I
Yeah,
completely agree with you.
that's
Yes.
my 2 cents. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. This is very important that, some articles might deceive you with like the name of the article or something, but yes, they just wanted to know whether the supervisor's support had an impact on the burnout of the therapists. So it's more like looking at the antecedent interventions when we're looking at the importance of supervisory role, ensuring or reducing or preventing, let's say, burnouts, and the impact of applying the interventions correctly in an ABA school. So yeah, I would maybe put zero point 0.5 for that. Let's look at applied. Do you think that in this article, do you think that we have enhanced or improved someone's life or a learner and those who are or closest to the learners by improving a socially significant behavior?
Zero.
Zero. Yeah, I think so too. And again, another point here, if they were able to give us some, how can a supervisor support, that would be very beneficial. Then I would definitely put a mark in there, but they didn't. And I thought that would be something that could be explored. Conceptually systematic, which is, get a CAB, which starts with the C for CAB. Are the interventions consistent with the principles demonstrated in the literature and the research? It is important that practitioners continue to use research-based techniques to avoid using any shortcuts in our teaching methods. Have they used any, you know, um, literature or research to demonstrate the impact of, let's say, the supervisor support and predictions of the burnout and self-efficacy in therapists? It's a tricky one because I think, in my opinion, as you can say, that there wasn't any intervention, but it was more collecting and understanding the importance of supervisors' support. Again, I wish there was more on how to change the behaviors of the supervisors to decrease the burnout effect. Maybe that's going to be a next one to look into, and a next journal club meeting for this. Analytical, conceptual, systematic. Yeah, we're done with that one. The other dimension, as we said, is the conceptually systematic, right? We already mentioned what that is, and they scored 0 on that too. The next is analytic. So in that dimension, we're looking at the practitioners able to show that whatever she has applied a certain variable, the behavior is produced, and whenever she removes this variable, the behavior is lost. So for this one, I think because we are looking into the different predictors of burnout, the behaviors didn't change, but it gave us an indication of the emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and lack of personal accomplishments when there is low levels of um, supervisory role in their work as therapists working directly with the clients. So I just want to mention that because I know that a lot of people around the region do work freelancing. And to me, this is very unethical. And I feel like because of this freelancing, there's no supervision, therefore, no accountability, and of course, this impacts the accomplishments, and the impact of burnout effects might, surface up without any support. So it's really not going to be effective in the long term. Behavioral. So looking at it, are we looking at observable and measurable behaviors? Did we define a behavior that makes it easily to observe and measure? We're able to prove any improvements as well as lack of improvements. Again, they actually mentioned that this is as part of their limitations, is that they are looking at a measurement that will only look at the quality from the perspective of the therapists, right? But I would definitely feel that it's important to have more, we look at more behavioral interventions and look at the outcomes of the therapist when, let's say, more supervision hours was given for a specific, let's say, behavioral challenge or behavior problem. I would be interested to hear some of the people around here today. As a therapist, do you feel those burnt out effect when the supervisors are not available? And what do you do in those situations? What is your experience in this? I would be interested to know. Please do open your mic. As a therapist, do you feel burnt out and in your jobs, and how do you combat it? This way we can definitely use this time to discuss these factors that can be applicable for everyone. What is your experience with burnout, and have you or your team tried anything to reduce burnouts? In my experience, yes. It's very natural that we feel burnout, even supervisors themselves. With the workload, with the intensity of behaviors that we face, with the amount of hours that we need to put in to do research and put interventions together. It might not be payable hours, which could be very challenging. So even with supervisors, they could face burnout effect. And regarding the therapists, I think, definitely in my experience, I did have some burnout effects. And when you sit with your therapist or your supervisor, it's important to disclose it, I think. And if they didn't, then I think the supervisors should look into the signs of burnout. What are the signs of burnout? When it comes to the employees, we have increased number of absences. We have a lack of, work or job or admin job or fidelity of intervention. Um, what else we can experience?
Hi,
Um,
Sharifa.
Hello, go on. Who wants to speak first? Show participants. Yeah, you can put your arm, raise your hand, and then I can call your name.
Okay, I don't know who was the other person, but since they turned their mic off, I'll just go ahead.
Yes, please.
So, something regarding burnout is something that could help is for us to just reflect on the tasks we assign our supervisees. Are they all necessary? Are there tasks more important so that we can point that out to our supervisees? Like, let's spend our time on these tasks. Those other tasks, for example, can wait. I think burnout can also come when people don't know to what tasks or responsibilities to allocate their time to. And so they can get overwhelmed and always feeling like they are lacking behind and not able to meet their job requirements, etc. So that can be something that supervisees jump in and help their supervisees.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. One of the things that I've also helped in that sense. So let's say my supervisee is falling behind. So what would do, we would, so I would help them to schedule their time and what to do in their admin work and then check on them. So let's say we agree on, okay, on this date and this time we're gonna do the data entry or something like that, or summarizing or graphing, or reviewing the behavior program. And usually that really helped to minimize the feelings of stress before it goes into burnouts. Um, I definitely also put in place the way the supervisors discuss and encourage. So using positive words and positive, um, encouraging words would really help, I think, the supervisees to come up with ways to decrease their stress. Also, like it would be nice for supervisees to know that, you know, um, your supervisor is there to help you break down. So time management is one of the most important soft skill, I think, as part of the executive functioning, let's say. We don't get taught in universities how to time manage. And I think it's important as therapists, as supervisors, as owners, as directors to really put in a training for time management. I know time management is a very tricky part that it differs from one person to the other. Oh, look at that. We teach time management skills at ECAE. That's awesome. Is it open for everyone else? That would be great to apply for, because I know that a lot of individuals that are working, you know, in an ABA program, they have a lot of things to do. They have their admin work, they have their uh, they have also their updating their programs, doing stimulus and materials. Supervisors need to update the behavioral interventions, sit with the supervisees, do the training, do observations, and check for fidelity. So these are a lot of things that we do that is separate than other centers that don't apply ABA interventions. But we know that ABA intervention has a huge, positive impact on the outcome of, um, the skills. So it's worthwhile really to discuss the time management procedures with the team. Yes, I agree. Time management is an ACE event. I totally agree. I would definitely be there, because time management, I think, is one of the things that, let's say, it's it's something that as a behavior analyst myself find difficult, especially when it comes to research, and you can lose your time in just researching, and then all of a sudden you're like, I still didn't write my intervention. So I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but it definitely feels that sometimes there are more hours that we use than the typical 8 hours work. Let's just be truthful here. Our jobs as BCBAs is not a 9 to 5 job. At times you need to do some, research, you need to do readings of articles. Um, so it's all about you as a person on how proficient you are in reading articles, and pull out those important programs to apply with your clients, I think. Ciao, please. Thank you for raising your hand.
I think what part of the time management, I think we should also be taught to, okay, how do I put this? To not take too many clients that we can manage. Do you
Yeah.
so like as a form of prevent us from burning out to from overworking or overworking our supervisors, our therapists, right? I think it is also important to manage the number of clients that we need to take in, you know.
Yeah.
So because if you like you don't what is that called? You don't bite more than you can chew, or
Yeah.
yeah, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
Because if you cannot handle that many of clients, you will be hurting yourself, and then it won't be benefiting the clients as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for sharing your thoughts. I love your interaction with us. It's easy said than done, because let's say, you are working in a company, and you have a set of salary that you need to meet. It's not the same as a freelancer. The freelancers are more controlling their amount of clients or hours that they are going to be using. It also impact their income, so as, let's say, a company, right, as a supervisor, when we are, you know, um, let's say, registering those clients with our supervisees, they need to understand that the importance of balancing the hours of work versus the income. I think this is where there will be a clash. Someone can come to me and say, "Oh, I can just take 2 clients," right? But as an HR, They would be like, wait a minute, you can just work with two, and we are paying this amount of salary, so there might be some clashes. In my perspective, this is from my experience. Of course, I've seen that, but I think definitely the amount of clients do have an impact, and of course the intensity of that case. If this case has like a case with very, very high levels of problem behaviors or these kind of things, of course you're going to have put more hours. It's going to take more time for you to work with that client. By the end of the session, you will feel exhausted, and that will pile up, so it's something that we can also consider when we are, managing the clients and distributing the clients across the therapists in a school. Like, you don't want to give all of the difficult cases to one therapist. You want to really distribute them across the client, the bases that you have, like how many therapists you have there. Um, but I definitely feel from my experience, it's one of those tricky things, right? So, and I'm sure that a lot of people here can, share their experience and like complaining, like, why do I have to get this case? Like all they do is self-interest behaviors, even though this is our job to change those behaviors, but it does take a toll on our emotion and physical abilities, right? So this is something that we need to open up and talk more about it, I think, in the centers, because I can see that there's a high turnover in our field. Unfortunately, that's very expensive, not just for the company, but for the economy as a whole. That we really need to balance our burnout, to talk more, communicate, open it up with your supervisors, have them to support you throughout. If you don't have a fidelity or you feel your self-efficacy is low, talk about it. Say, hey, I'm not sure how to implement this. Can you do it with me? Can we set a schedule for that, etc.? So these are things that I myself am still working on. So that's why I wanted to choose an article that really helped me to put things in perspective and discuss it with everyone here. Wow, the time already flew. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time to listen to my article. Please feel free to contact the ABA Journal Club email if you would like to take part as a volunteer to discuss an article and share it with your colleagues. I'm just gonna put the email into the chat. It's the ABA Journal Club at gmail.com. Um, sorry, I'm just gonna put that in the chat. The ABA Journal Club, at gmail.com. We do need some more. So on a quarter basis, we will be doing the next talk about another topic on another article. And hopefully this will continue to push everyone to read more. And that's the whole mission of the ABA Journal Club of UAE, that we want our practitioners to continue to build their um, research and reading articles and being able to critique it. Thank you, everyone. Please do follow us on our Instagram, and please do email us and send a survey about the today's session. And hopefully, if you're interested to be a volunteer with us, please do send us an email, and we're happy to help you guys throughout the ABA Journal Club experience. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night.